Hello and welcome to The Agenda with me, Graham Hughes, and I'm joined, as ever, by Phil Morehouse over in, I was going to say Yorkshire, but it's Lincolnshire. You're
Slightly outside of Yorkshire, yeah.
Anyway, big shout out, first of all, to Scott and to Graham and to Hayhan and Gralafane, Ren, David and Diz, One Angry Pagan, and so many others in the chat. If you would like to join our friends in the chat, all you need to do, hit the subscribe button, make some new friends, have a chat in the chat while we're discussing stuff, or maybe ask us questions. And if you want to accompany that with a super chat, we're more likely to answer it. So, Phil, at the moment, Kim Leadbeater's bill for the assisted dying bill is going through its third reading. And they're going to vote on that, I guess, at some point. I thought they would have voted on it by now. But there's been, have you managed to watch any of the debate?
No, I've caught some quotes as I was listening to the cricket.
The more important stuff, yeah.
We just got 2 wickets.
But I think it was just Kit Malthouse who stood up and said, I think it was him, who just said,
it was him.
Talking about how at the beginning of the week, on Tuesday, we had the amendment to the crime bill, which made abortion not a crime for a woman, but it's still a crime to supply abortion.
To assist at all, anyone else is not affected by that amendment.
So Stella Creasy wrote an article about this for The Guardian. Did you feel like this went a bit too far, where it said essentially that abortion remains a criminal offence in the UK because of the left's timidity? We must learn from that and fast. I'll put the link in the chat for anyone interested.
I don't know the reason at all. I mean, it's. So there were 2 amendments, and the reason why Creasy's wasn't selected for a vote was because the procedure is the speaker, because they were mutually exclusive, right? So as soon as one amendment is voted in favour of, that means it's going to be added to it. So you cannot then vote on an amendment which would contradict it. And so then you're sort of asking, so why was one amendment voted on before the other? What determined that? And you don't really know for certain, because Erskine May, which is the rule book for these things, says that it's up to the speaker, and they are not normally expected to give their reasoning. In fact, if you remember last year when we had that hoo-ha over the Gaza ceasefire motion, and the Tories hijacked it, and then the speaker chose to accept Labour's over the SNPs for the opposition one, and that caused a right fuss. And then the speaker did explain his reasoning, but that's very rare because it caused a backlash. Now, in this case, it's very likely he chose because he'll have, MPs will have sounded him out. It's the speaker's job, in a sense, to have a rough understanding of broadly what MPs want him to do. So and because there has been no backlash as a result of it, it would seem to me that actually most MPs wanted that. But the reason I couldn't say, Stella obviously is an MP and she'll talk to colleagues, so she will have a better idea than me. I really couldn't tell you what the reason is. Yeah,
but I mean, there's one of the things I want to talk about today about the assisted dying bill is what I think is really important about what they're doing is they're changing it so that women, men, anyone can't be coerced into doing this thing. And that's always something that people who are opposed to abortion say, well, what about people who are coerced into having an abortion? Which is why there are safeguards in place. But then once it's established that, yes, I do want this is my own decision, I'm not being forced into this situation, then I don't think the people who are facilitating that outcome should be criminalised. Now, in the UK at the moment, we have a really mad system where there is no law against coercing somebody to kill themselves. There is no law against it. And this is what Leadbeater's law would bring in. It's for the first time ever on the statute books. It would be against the law to coerce someone to take their own life. And as someone who's a friend of mine took her own life last year as a result of coercion, I couldn't believe that it wasn't against the law. I'm like,
it's because the reason is because taking your own life is itself a criminal act. So it's like thought of.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
It is.
Suicide hasn't been illegal for decades.
It hasn't been prosecuted.
I thought it hasn't been illegal. I thought it was, because that was one of the
check, but
mad
I'm pretty
rules,
sure
wasn't
is.
it? Like,
It
if
was.
you tried to kill yourself and failed, you'd be given the death penalty.
Well,
That'll
there
learn
was
you.
always a difference. There was a difference between, say, England and Scotland, where I can't remember which way around it is now. In one of them, the police can intervene to try and stop you on the basis that they are preventing a criminal act, but in the other they can't. I'm pretty sure it's in Scotland where they can't.
Okay.
I'd have to check because you put me on the spot now, but I'm pretty sure that's the situation. That police can intervene,
yeah,
on the basis that they're preventing a criminal act.
Okay, so the Suicide Act 1961 decriminalised suicide so that those who survived the suicide attempt would no longer be prosecuted. So that's from the 60s.
Okay.
So effectively, yeah, it's decriminalised. But I mean, one of my many objections to the people complaining about Kim Leadbeater's bill about euthanasia is that at the moment you can be coerced into going to Switzerland, and there's no law against it. And who are the most likely to want to bump off an older relative who might have a bit of money?
Well, someone who's wealthy, yeah.
And who has the money to send them to Switzerland?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, for me as well, like one of the things, so one of the main arguments that's coming out is because our palliative care is so poor, because basically the Tories knackered the NHS, but because the palliative care is so poor, it might, even without coercion, encourage some more people to take their lives because they're not having the sort of palliative care that should be the case with a modern NHS. But my argument to that is the provisions that are in this bill now, particularly as there were extra ones put in, really cover that. To my mind, if this bill is passed, and there is, I think the balance is probably that it's more likely to be passed than not, but we won't know until there is the vote. So if it is passed, there'll still be a lot of people who are definitely going to die, and they're in incredible pain. And they want to end the pain, and their family are comfortable with that, who will not be able to. Because the safeguards in here, I think, are actually excessive. And you could argue, so what's happened here is, Leadbeater has effectively taken account of this, palliative care argument. And and I don't want to sort of make an issue of this because it's actually one of the rare situations of a very sensitive bill where party politics is not playing a part, which is quite good. But what I would say is that some of the people objecting are objecting on the basis of the people who might, be inclined to do it because of this lack of palliative care. And it's like, but what about the people? I mean, first of all, if that palliative care doesn't exist, then they're still being basically tortured. It's irrelevant. They're still being tortured. But the second thing is, what about the people? Doesn't matter how much improvements you make to the NHS over the next few years, the situation is still going to be they're in incredible pain, cannot do anything. I mean, my father-in-law, when he went last year, now, I mean, he went quickly enough. It didn't get super bad, but he was in pain. And let's say he'd have wanted to end it. Now, he wasn't doing anything. He was barely able to communicate. But I've also known people who, for their last 3 months, were not able to communicate at all. They were in incredible pain. They couldn't do anything. They couldn't talk to anyone. They couldn't even blink at people.
My dad has been in that situation for 5 years now. He can't move for himself. He can't speak. He can't communicate. The only way you can know he's in discomfort is by the look on his face. And, and it's horrible. And I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. And I certainly wouldn't want to dump that on my family at the end of my life. I would rather just say, oh, it's all right. I'll just go to sleep. Fine. Like my bloody, my pet rabbit.
The thing is as well, it gives you a measure of control in terms of the grief process for everyone else.
Yes.
The problem with something like this, it can happen incredibly quickly. Like a colleague of my wife's has just died. I mean, she was, only in her 40s, but she's just died of cancer. But she was sort of having treatment and then just didn't wake up one day. So for her, it was very quick, which means that she wouldn't have been a candidate for this course because there was treatment available. But it's the idea that sometimes people can go very quickly. and their loved ones aren't prepared for it. And with some people, they're prepared for it for potentially years.
Yeah.
And they're constantly in a state of that preparedness. And that's, so it's not nice for the person who's dying, but it's also not nice for those around them.
Yeah. Well, my dad's been on palliative care now since September 2020. And, it's great that he's still with us. And obviously even if this came in tomorrow, which is not, it's going to take 4 years, even if it passes, gets royal assent, it's going to take 4 years to adjust things in the NHS. Because there's been loads of amendments put into this. There's been loads of extra things put in. It started off, it was going to be a High Court judge could decide. Then it was, no, actually, we need a panel of experts. We need a psychiatrist. We need 2 independent doctors, which makes sense to me because, yes, I am concerned about the idea of coercion. But the status quo, coercion's even worse because there's not a law against it. Whereas this would mean 14 years in jail for someone who coerces someone into doing this against their will. And it'll come out at the moment when you have an elderly couple living in suburbia and they can't bear to see their partner that they've been with for 50 years in pain, and they smother them with a pillow or whatever. It's, even if they don't, it's got to go. They've got to go and have their body cut up by a bloody mortician. What are they called? A coroner, to decide what the cause of death was. And then the police might get involved if they think there's any foul play that's gone on. And this is putting undue strain and stress on not just the people who are suffering and the people whose body is torturing them, but also the people around them. And the arguments that were being made so I watched the whole debate so far. Obviously, I've stopped to watch this to do this. But the arguments made against it were fucking weak. They were almost all like, well, we agree in principle, but this isn't a very good bill. And they say that this isn't going to come back for another 10 years if it gets defeated by then. But that's nonsense. It takes years to get something like this through.
Yeah.
And
it was about a decade. Because there was an attempt before, and that was about a decade ago.
Yeah, and that got snuffed out by the 2015 election. So, I mean, who's that idiot with the funny name? Because he's an idiot. James Cleverly. He stood up and he said, "I'm an atheist. I'm not coming at this from a humanitarian, a religious point of view. I'm coming at this because I think this is a badly put together bill." And I was like, well, what more do you want? Having read through it, I mean, and there were amendments added this morning, which I think makes it even stronger. I think this is actually a better situation, even for people who disagree with abortion, with euthanasia, than the one we've got at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said. The whole focus has been on, these concerns that people. It's like I'm looking at it now and thinking almost no one's going to even qualify for this. Again, it's one of those things, and that's what some people will argue as well, and some people have argued that this bill, will be passed into law as it is, and then over a period of years, it'll be loosened up. Well, it sort of needs to be loosened up as the systems get used to it, and also as people start to see that a lot of the doom and gloom doesn't actually happen, then it will be right for that to happen.
Bill opposer Tom Tugendhat, he said that the bill should be called assisted killing. Assisted killing. This is someone who's born dead rich, went to a private school, can afford to kill anyone he likes.
But also, he didn't go to a good private school because he's not even technically right. It's not a semantics issue. Assisted kill it, like it's assisted dying because the person who wants to die needs assistance. So they're dying, they're not killing. So it's not assisted killing at all. So in actual fact, his English teacher was a load of shit.
Well, yeah, I mean,
paid all that money.
You don't have to be qualified as a teacher to teach in a private school. Don't forget, that's just for us staties. But yeah, it's his Jesus Christ. He went to St. Paul's School. Oh my God, founded in 1509. Probably about 30.
St. Paul had assisted dying.
Did he?
He didn't want it, did he? He was the one who got dumped upside down on the cross because the Romans didn't like him.
He was put on an upside down cross.
Or was it? Am I getting the wrong one? Hang on. Am I getting my scriptures wrong? Was that
probably
Paul?
Are. I don't know. You want to find a Catholic? Find a Catholic.
Might have been John.
Catholics
Might
know
be
all
John.
about the saints. They memorize them. They're forced to memorize them in Sunday school. Baz Jones says, we are opening Pandora's box and there's no going back, which raises all sorts of questions and problems. One thing, it may stop doctors making choices on their own with no discussion.
Doctors wouldn't have to do it.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't be able to force a doctor to do this. It would only be doctors who are willing to.
Yep. The NHS, everyone in the NHS will have an option to opt out from being involved in this in any way. And the thing is, we're not opening Pandora's box. Pandora's box is already open. If you want to have assisted suicide and you live in this country, you can go to Switzerland and go to a Dignitas clinic if you've got the money to do so. If you haven't got the money to do so, you don't have that option. And that's what the rich don't want. They don't want us to have options. They want the options. They want to decide whether they can have an abortion or not, or whether they can go and live in Europe. We can't. Taking that away from us. I thought Tug and Hat was okay for a Tory. Emotive language like that is very disappointing. I thought Peter was crucified upside down. There you go, mate. It's Peter.
Oh, Peter.
Not Paul.
Okay, fine.
You're crucifying Peter to pay Paul. No, that doesn't work, does it? Sorry, too soon. My mother was a strict Catholic. She died of a year-long bowel cancer, screaming to be killed, even though she would lose the plot in the hallowed ground of her church. Oh my God, that's some SBJ chef. That's awful. That is awful. But I mean, if you're being tortured by your own body, I think most people would do anything to make it stop. Probably shouldn't tell the Satanists that the upside down cross is the symbol of St. Peter, not the Antichrist, says Grim Fang. Is that true?
The thing is, though, well, it has to be, because that's what happened. What had happened was this, because this was after Christ's death, and the Romans said, they didn't like him. They were going to crucify you, bastard. He said, it'll be an honour to die in the way of our Lord. So they said, right, you bastard. And they put him on upside down. See how you like that?
Cheeky fuckers.
They weren't very nice, the Romans, back in those days. The thing about the religious side of it, I'm just going to say as well, as a Christian, although I may get my apostles wrong and things like that, but nonetheless, there's absolutely nothing Jesus said that is against euthanasia. It's one of these things that people, theologians, basically just imagined.
Do you remember all the stuff he said about gay people? There's things in the Bible about immorality, including sexual immorality, but it's not really spelled out what that is. Yeah, but Jesus didn't say it.
No, and Jesus's best mate was a prostitute, so he didn't give a shit. He even backed her up when his mates were ragging on her.
Yep.
Remember
what Jesus said about trans people? He had a big go at trans people. Oh no, he didn't. Do you know what he did have a big go about 3 times in his script, in what he's supposed to have said? Adultery.
And rich people.
Oh yeah, rich people. He had to go at rich people, didn't he?
In general, he never shut up about rich bastards.
So he went into the temple and he turned over the tables, didn't he, from the money lenders and the money changers and stuff. He wasn't happy.
I don't think he had a problem with the money lending. It was just it shouldn't have been in the temple.
Yes, but then you got
that
mad thing where in his religion, if you paid the priest loads of money, they'll forgive you of your sins. You wouldn't have to get forgiveness from the person who, you actually transgressed.
Well, again, that's not. Yeah, there's lots of Christian rituals that developed, particularly in the Catholic, because that's one that stretches right back. Not in the Bible. When I say the Bible, I specifically mean the Gospels, because the Bible itself is a collection of books that just at some point in the past, a load of Christian scholars thought, oh, these are nice stories that sort of back up, and we'll just collect them together. Literally, if it's not, the book of Matthew is all you need to understand Christianity. You don't need anything else. There are the 4 Gospels that are sort of written about Jesus' life. All the other books have got nothing to do with Jesus.
Yeah,
it's just their letters and essays that people wrote in.
One of them is a dream.
Their one of them. Yeah, Daniel had the wrong mushrooms. What happened there? So it's just that. They're not.
It was the Council of Nicosia, wasn't it? Or Nicaea?
I can't remember.
Nicaea.
But there was a decision to go, look, these are the sort of things that, because there were other books that could have gone in as well, and these books are just letters that people wrote.
Gospel according to Judas.
They
could have got in there.
They're just letters and essays that people wrote.
Yeah.
But you can take or leave them. They're not the words of Jesus, and so they're not. You don't have to consider them part of Christianity.
I think a lot of people take them or leave them, whether they are the words of Jesus or not.
But nonetheless, like, and there's nothing in there with a new. Some people try to say, oh, but what about thou shalt not murder? It's like, yeah, murder isn't like just killing another person. It's specifically doing it. The implication is when you murder someone, they didn't want to be murdered.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
It doesn't.
Oh, Phil, I've lost you. Your sound's gone off, Phil. Can you still hear me? Don't know what's happened there. Might be my end. I don't know. Nope, still can't hear you. Oh, shit. This isn't good. Phil, do you want to just hang up and come back to me? I've lost Phil. I've lost Phil, everyone. Can't hear him. Well, this is troublesome. Chip says a mistranslated book into Greek from Aramaic by a bunch of rich men that always say a way to have an advantage, slightly skewing the meaning of a word. Well, words have lots of meanings. It's all about context, my friend. Context. Oh, I think we got Phil back. Have we got Phil?
Am I back?
Do we have Good. Phil? What happened?
I hope so. I've no idea.
Oh dear. Did it just come back on? You didn't change anything?
I didn't do anything, no.
Oh, bloody hell. Ugh. Gremlins in the system. One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Yeshua would be very confused if he came back to life to have everyone calling him Jesus. Yeah, because his name was Joshua, wasn't it? It's just a mistranslation, apparently.
There's lots of mistranslations. It's fine.
It's okay. So this assisted dying bill is still going through Parliament at the moment. But what has gone through is this amendment to abortion law. And this was a bit shocking to me. I didn't know that abortion was still against the law. That's kind of mind blowing.
It is. I mean, the one of these things. I mean, it's. I'm not a medical expert or a woman, right? But one of the things that people are pointing out, which is really very weird, is that even with this amendment, we're behind Northern Ireland of all places on abortion. Yeah. And the weird thing about that, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I may get this wrong again, but I'm pretty sure I'm right in thinking. And why that, by the way, would sound so mad is because there's a very large Catholic population in Northern Ireland. But I seem to remember that law was passed while Stormont was having argy-bargy. And I think that was passed by the Conservatives in Westminster.
Yeah.
I need to check on that, but I'm pretty sure. So I think it was a Westminster government that passed that for Northern Ireland because Stormont at that time was in mothballs over the arguments between Sinn Féin and the DUP. So it seems weird that I know it's different MPs because this was before a few years ago, but MPs effectively said yes, Northern Ireland should have this law, but England and Wales shouldn't. Is what is effectively happened.
Yeah. So what Stella Creasy's amendments or new clause 20 was supposed to do, that moved the criminal liability from not just women, which is the one that the NC1 did, the one that got through, but it also removed criminal liability for professionals and third parties. It made the 1967 Act enforcement only regulatory, and medical oversight. There was no criminal fallback. And this is the big one for me, the human rights legal basis, which is what they have in Northern Ireland, that abortion is a human right. That's explicitly embedded in the new clause in the the crime bill that was going through. And that's not in the one that actually did get through. That was in Stella Creasy's amendment.
The issue for me presumably will be, talking about coercion, this may make some women, because they won't be prosecuted, more likely to try and carry out an abortion without assistance, or in dodgy ways, which then risks their own health.
Yeah. I agree.
Because they will not be able to get medical assistance, because even if they initiate something, a doctor may still say, well, I that's the worry, that a doctor will have to say, well, I can't even treat you for this thing because I may be accused of assisting in an abortion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hodgepodge, isn't it? But I mean, at least Parliament moves forward, and I hope that at some future time we'll be able to revisit this. But it just takes so long to get these things going and making these things happen. If the bill today doesn't go through, do you think that Labour will, not as a private member's bill, but do you think Labour might retable it before the next Parliament, or is that just not going to happen?
I strongly suspect it's not going to happen.
No, I don't think it's going to happen either. Do you think it's too contentious, or is it
I
not
think
that
if it
type
doesn't
of
go
bill?
through, it must be too contentious, because as far as I can see, it reminds me actually of the there was the Mitchell and Webb scene where they were doing the skit where there was like the Bond villain, and he wanted someone to come in and design some trapdoors for him, and it had all the health and safety around it and all the flashing lights. So when he wanted to dump one of his poorly performing lieutenants down the hole, they had to put like a whole safety screen around it, and the siren had to go off and all the rest of it before he was allowed to open the trapdoor. And that's what this bill seems like now. There's so many safeguards in it, and I just think to myself, if MPs vote against it at this point, there must be a clear consensus against really doing anything at the moment, in which case the government would the government have stayed out of it, because they could have just done it. They could have just said, oh, we're just going to do this thing. This time has come, but they didn't, because even they've picked, Labour have, let's be honest, have picked quite a few fights with their own party in recent times, and this was obviously one that they didn't fancy. So that also suggests that it would be a fight.
Well, talking of fights in their own party, Labour have had a ministerial resignation, haven't they?
Another one, yeah. They've got a second one now.
A whip that's gone.
Yeah.
And what was this over?
So this was over the disability cuts.
Do you think
I'm seeing something really weird now about that.
Go on.
Because there's so what happened is a disabilities group, I can't remember who it was, Fred. So they wrote, Freedom of Information wrote to the government and said, have you been discussing the concept of means testing it? To which the government sort of replied, yes. They didn't give them the details, because if a policy is being discussed, the government do not have to disclose what they're discussing, because no policy has been announced. But it does mean they were discussing it. And so I was thinking to myself, so were they discussing that as an alternative? Or and there may not be a plan. I mean, all they've done is admit that they were discussing at some point. It may have been that there was a discussion, should we means test it or should we not? But if it's still an ongoing discussion, then that might actually suggest that they're going to make these cuts now, and then in a few years' time also means test it as well.
What,
now, I would have accepted
make a bad situation worse.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's like the winter fuel allowance thing. I have no objection at all to it being means tested, as long as you set the bar right, and it's actually been set higher than it is. The main issue with the winter fuel allowance is it was just a stupid political move, because pensioners vote and they get grumpy. But sorry to any non-grumpy pensioners here, but you have a reputation.
Not all boomers. Not all boomers. Quickly say not all boomers.
I didn't say boomers. I said pensioners.
Yeah, but the same thing, really. It's kind of interchangeable now, isn't it? Not too many of the silent generation left. They've all been silenced.
I've learned.
COVID.
I've lost the thread now.
You were talking about the future of this particular.
Yeah. So I mean, if you'd have means tested it at a suitable level,
yeah.
I mean, you could have still saved some money, because as people keep pointing out, it's not an in-work, but it's not something, for poor people. It's not something for people out of work or anything like that. It's just for people who have disabilities. So if you'd have wanted to means test it and you set it at the right level, there probably wouldn't have been this argy-bargy.
Yeah.
Even though some people would still feel aggrieved. Any sort of cuts, people are going to feel aggrieved. But the reason why it's creating such a massive fuss is specifically because you're going. it's going to hit people who are already in or near poverty.
Yeah. Yes.
And the government get most of the money back anyway.
You're saving 5 billion from
Not even saving
the
that.
poorest people in the, the
A lot
neediest.
of that money comes back in secondary taxes anyway.
Yeah.
I'd actually like to know how much it's really saved, because I struggle to believe it's actually going to save that much, given that, you give some money, it's going to be spent in local services, it comes back in profits in VAT and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got John McDonnell on his feet at the moment. Saying it doesn't have to be a choice between palliative care or assisted dying, which is very true. There was some mentions earlier today in this debate that's going on at the moment where I think it was Ian Duncan Donuts who stood up and said, well, all these groups are against it. How come all the palliative care people are against it and all these doctors are against it? And I'm like, who? What? Are these a homogeneous group? All doctors think the same way? Of course they don't. But I do think there is a lot of overlap in this issue with people who don't think that abortion should be legal, with people who think that people shouldn't have bodily autonomy, with people who want to tell you what to do with your own body, Well,
what there is a crossover with, very much like in America, when you come to like the pro-life, they call it in America, don't they? Anti-abortion. And it's pointed out enough in America, but the message doesn't hit home, but it's the same in this country, is that they think the fetus has all these rights right up until the moment they're born, at which point, sod you.
Yeah.
So, and there is a huge crossover here as well. It's not exclusively, but it is largely people who, if you're not fit and healthy, they're effectively wanting to deny you healthcare. And if you are, they're also wanting. So that's what it comes down to, I suppose, isn't it? They want to deny you healthcare in whatever situation.
Yes. But also, I mean, they want to do horrible things. They want you to be tortured. I'm sorry, but there's some people out there who are just... We've heard of this horrific story in Georgia about a black woman called Ariana Smith, who was kept alive. Well, she wasn't kept alive. She was dead. She was brain dead. And so her body was doing what bodies do when they are dead. It was decomposing, it wasn't making hormones. It wasn't making all the gluten, whatever it is that you need to keep your functioning, your stuff going. And they kept her alive for months because she was pregnant when she died. And they can't have it both ways. You can either say, well, this is what God intended.
Yeah.
And or keep someone alive by bloody necromancy or something alive as a gestation vehicle for this baby that's now been cut out of her, and she's finally allowed to be at rest. But this is just absolutely horrific on every level, and you've got these weirdos in America going, "Oh my God, this is a miracle! We've got life from death." But the baby does survive. That baby's going to have serious disability issues, and who's going to pay to look after that baby? It won't be the people who wanted to keep the baby. I'll tell you that for nothing. So just really, really grim news from America. That's straight out The Handmaid's Tale. And people are talking about they all bailed her family for it, says Sarah Davis. And all the family was racking up. They billed the parents, sorry, not bailed, from Sarah. Yeah, that all the time the family was racking up medical debt. They're going to be in medical debt now, probably for the rest of their lives. And Kirsty says, yes, anti-abortion, anti-assisted dying, anti-trans. If you drew a Venn diagram, you'll end up with a circle. But, Kirsty, I will point out that the same people who are anti that, they're only anti it for us lot. For the very rich, they can still access everything that they want. Anything they want, they can access it. They just want to stop us from accessing it as well. Like I said at the top of the show, if you're rich, you can go to Dignitas, can't you? So
and just like with Brexit, if you've got a British passport, the EU are clamping down on it a bit, but you just banked a load of money in a Cyprus bank account and you got an EU passport.
Yeah. Malta had a golden passport for a bit.
Oh, was it Malta? I may be disparaging Cyprus by mistake.
Cyprus had a golden passport. It's like 5 million you gave the government, and they'll give you an EU passport.
Yeah. The EU aren't happy about that. I think they are clamping down on that, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's very tempting for me to go and live in Ireland for 5 years and then get an Irish passport. Because you only have to do it for 5 years in Ireland. Here in the UK now, you have to be here for 10 years before you can get a British passport.
Well, it's going to be 10 years, yeah. I mean, I'm that one. I mean, if the government wants to make that rule, I haven't got an issue with that. They can do what they like. But I do have an issue where they're not phasing it in. So if you've got someone who's been there for like 4 years, and you're changing the goalpost for people who've made big life-changing decisions, that's not. It should only apply from the moment at which it's implemented for people who are starting the process after that point.
Yeah. What do you think of the news that came out this week about one of the leaders or a couple of the leaders of the Rochdale grooming gang who has had their British citizenship revoked because they are a dual passport holder? So if someone is a national of two nations, you can take their passport off them.
Yeah.
A bit of a grey area where you can't do that. You couldn't do that to me. You couldn't not make me British because I'm only a citizen.
They could. They did it with Shamima Begum, didn't they?
Yes, they did. Okay,
even though she wasn't a citizen of anywhere else.
Yeah.
But they said, Bangladesh. It's like, no, she ain't got Bangladesh, but she's never been to Bangladesh, mate.
Yeah, got nothing to do with her. But yeah, so but that's all. So, but apparently Pakistan is refusing to take these people. Like, what would you reckon the outcome of this is going to be? Do you reckon there's going to be some diplomacy backdoor deal where they say just fucking take him? We'll pay for it.
I strongly suspect so. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I imagine that would be the situation. I mean, Pakistan's got problems now of its own with the Iranian war because it shares a very large border with them, and there's a lot of refugees about to start moving. I think some have actually started.
Yeah. And then just to bring on to another sort of international issue that we're dealing with this week, or happened this week. On Monday, we finally signed the deal, this shit trade deal with the US, and Trump dropped the papers all over the floor like a mad bastard. Do you think that this is justification for people who said, oh, well, we should Brexit because then we'll all be better off?
I mean, we're not better off. We're not even better off with this deal than we were at the start of the year. It's just like Trump basically, I mean, he's just stopped punching us in the face effectively, but no, we're still made no appreciable gains since Brexit. The only gains we've made have been like tiny, roughly 0%, maybe boosting by 2040 deals, and it's still a net loss, massive net loss.
Yeah, because it's 4% a year, isn't it, that we've lost from being not in the EU?
Yeah, well, at the moment, so there's some, I mean, that's the OBR saying that's what they think the medium to long-term outlook is. There are some economists who think at the moment, however, it's more like somewhere between 4.5 and 5, but they also agree it will settle down to 4. So it's depends on which model you use. It's somewhere between 4 and 5 at the moment, and we'll settle down to about 4% loss of. Our economy will always be 4% behind where it would otherwise have been.
Yeah, and no deal that we try to get with the Americans or the Indians or the Chinese is going to make
them
up
all
for
together,
it.
or all of them all together.
Yeah, it's not even going to make 1%.
The thing is, how, you'd want to say to these people, what do you think the trade deal does to improve our trade with these countries? What do you think it does? Reduce tariffs? Tariffs are already really low, except now with America. Yes. America's now the only country where there's stupid tariffs. The only time you ever have appreciable tariffs on things you export to a country is when there are economic sanctions being applied. Because tariffs are sometimes used to apply political pressure through economics. So, but tariffs are really the whole point of the World Trade Organization, which was set up decades ago, was to try and encourage countries to agree to lower trade barriers. So that's when you had like global supply chains setting up and productivity massively increased and all the rest of it. There's not really very much scope. Like if you look at the example of Trump moaning about cars, oh, Japan don't buy our cars, as if it's something to do with the Japanese government. The tariff on American cars into Japan is 0.
Yeah. They just don't want their cars because they're too big and
they're
stupid.
shit.
Yeah, they're gas guzzling monsters. You
Exactly.
You can't see anything out of the bloody bastards. One Angry Pagan, thank you so much for the super chat. Labour looking at extending trawling bans and ratifying the UN law of the high seas into law after the Tories, of course, procrastinated and delayed. And that's something that I should mention as well. Is like the Tories were in power for 14 years. They did fuck all, didn't they? Apart from like damaging stuff, getting rid of Short Start, taking us out of the EU.
Tell you what it's like near your part of the country. This is Newcastle. So when Ashley took over Newcastle Football Club, what I know, I was sort of a Newcastle fan, but I didn't often go to St James's Park. But what I know from people who did regularly go, they would tell me that he just let the place go to rack and like the maintenance just pretty much stopped. You know, just over the years, they could just see like signs of rust and decay and stuff like that, and there was no real maintenance being spent on it. That's what the Tories did to the country.
Yeah,
they just didn't maintain it. They certainly didn't put any development funding in, but they didn't even maintain what we had.
No,
they didn't even look after it as custodians while Labour came back in.
The one big project that they were in charge of, HS2, they absolutely screwed the pooch on it. Like it went from supposed to cost about 13 billion. It went to over 100 billion.
Yeah, well, I mean, what happened there was David Cameron and George Osborne understood that they were cutting the shit out of everything and thought they recognised that we need to give some people a bit of optimism for the future. And so they stuck with HS2, not because they really wanted it or saw the value in it, but because they thought it's this we're going to have to go through tough times now. But you know, we've got our eyes on the future, and that was supposed to be a symbol of. But they didn't really believe in it.
Yeah, well, that goes for a lot of things that the rich and the powerful claim to care about until they don't.
See, one good thing that's come out there that Labour are doing, because their industrial strategy is out next week, and they've leaked a little bit of it, which sounds actually really good. Because one of the biggest problems we've got with British industry is the fact that, because we have, for electricity, there's domestic rates, you think they're high. There's also business rates, they're way higher. And so the rates that British businesses have to pay for electricity, like if you think about big factories and stuff like that, absolutely sucking up loads of energy, they pay more than any other comparable economy. It's 4 times more than in the USA. So you can see why British industry is quite uncompetitive. You know, we know that when the price of electricity shot up in the wake of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, there were restaurants and pubs and all sorts going on, farms some struggled with, just because of that massively increased cost of electricity. So apparently one major aim of the industrial strategy is to drive those prices down for industry.
Yeah,
which would actually, if they did that, that would massively make a difference.
It would. And this is something that Labour should be, I mean, if they manage to get it by 2029, that we are very much on the way to net zero, and they uncouple the price of energy from the most expensive commodity, which is gas, that is a game changer. That is an absolute game changer. If we start paying 100 quid a year for our energy bills rather than 100 quid a week, that's going to make a big difference. Hello there, says oh no, actually that's your name. Hello there, says, here you go, have a super chat, says the Tyne Bridge is now just rust coloured. St James's Park might get a rebuild in 10 years. And Chris C says, Phil, they did maintain some infrastructure, the infrastructure that their wealthy donors
executive boxes
used. Yeah, the executive boxes, they were well maintained. They were looked after. But yeah, I mean, you're right. It really is a 2-tier system. And this is why you see the likes of Farage and Tice and Zia Youssef, all privately educated, all going on about 2-tier this and 2-tier that. Because they're doing the old Goebbels thing of accuse your enemy of that of which you are guilty. And like, they know that it is a very much a 2-tier system in this country. And it's not even like working class versus upper class. It is just the rich and then everybody else. And there's a lot of people who are rich who don't even think they're rich. They're like, oh, I'm barely, making it through life with £100,000 a year job. And I'm like, what the hell? What do they spend their money on? Fancy swords. But yeah, it's kind of maddening, like that. The sort of the lack of awareness that a lot of people who vote for Revoc and the Tory party in general have to the fact that they don't do anything to make the lives of the people who vote for them better.
No, they're making it much worse.
They make them feel better
as well. The thing is as well that Farage personally is out of touch with even his own voters on so many issues. It's why all Labour really have to do is make sure that they do deliver and make sure they communicate it. They could eat Farage for breakfast. Think about the things that polling has shown Farage is out of touch with, even certainly with the majority of the British public, but also even with a lot of his own voters. Net zero, even Reform UK voters, by and large, not all of them, but by and large, want action on climate change. Then there's like Putin and Trump. They're both very unpopular in this country.
Yep.
And although they're more popular amongst Reform UK voters, most Reform UK voters still find them unpopular. Obviously they're not impressed with Doge cuts. So just think about a lot of the big issues. Privatising the NHS. I know he tries to deny it, but he's recorded saying it many times.
Yeah.
Privatising the NHS. There's so many issues where Farage is just out of touch with even his own voters. The reason people are flocking to Reform UK is they just look, the Tories completely knackered us. Labour haven't turned it around, so we think they're failing too. And it's the same thing that allowed Trump to emerge. It's this, the established politics would, it doesn't matter who we flip between, our standard of living is just getting lower and lower and lower. So we may as well try this. Oh, this new option has come onto the table. Let's try it. So that's why Labour have to be really, really clear. And they have said so, but they need to be really clear. People must feel that their life is better at the next election.
Yes.
To counter it.
All about
and then the support should just leach away from Farage because he is personally against public opinion on so many things. Even Brexit. Even on Brexit.
Yeah.
It is like the majority of people are against him on that.
One Angry Pagan, thank you so much for the £20 super chat. That's so generous of you. Thank you. DEFRA may be getting an overall reduction in funding, but from what I've been seeing, better and more focused targeting spending seems to be how Labour are looking to make more and more effective changes given the headwinds.
Yeah, but DEFRA have got a big bill coming their way if they're not, because it looks like in fact, Steve Reed has just said they're stepping up preparations again for at least temporarily nationalising Thames Water.
Yeah.
And the Treasury have said, well, you're paying for it, mate. But then what's the alternative? The reason it's come about is basically, I'll do a video on this tomorrow, the creditors say, oh, we reckon we can sort the company out, but you have to let us break the law. and Steve Reed said, no.
So to bring it back to the conversation about this assisted dying bill, which is still being discussed as we speak in Parliament. Who's on their feet now? Are you watching this?
I'm only watching the BBC updates. So the last one I've got up here is Wendy Morton, who's a Conservative who ain't happy.
They're never happy. So who's on their feet at the moment? I hate it when they don't tell you which MP it is, and you're like, am I supposed to recognise this guy? What I noticed this morning was there was a few amendments that went in, and they were all passing, or the ones that the ones that were pro the bill were passing with a majority of about 50, and that's what the second reading of the bill passed with, wasn't it? That was about 50.
I think there will have been some changes, maybe one way and the other. I think the fact that the things were passing so easily, relatively speaking, this morning, is making people, and the fact that you've got the people who are opposed to the bill really, getting quite, or some of them getting quite shirty, I think means that MPs have got a feeling that it is going to go through.
Okay, Matthew Patrick is on his feet at the moment. He's the MP for Wivel West. Oh God, that's hard to say, isn't it?
That's your part of the world.
I know it is, just over the water. That I can't say it though. I'm glad I'm not the MP for there. I'd have to stand up and say I'm the MP for. The worst for me is the River Ribble. I just can't say that. That is like a proper tongue twister for me.
Right.
The River
Try not to stand
Ribble.
for election in Wales.
No, it's not that a word's. Well, then again, I had trouble for many years saying the word aberrist with. But yeah, so do you feel like there was an interview with Kim Leadbeater before we went into Parliament today, and she said she was feeling quite positive about it.
I think, looking at what some political correspondents have been saying, they think it's probably going to go through.
Okay.
I mean, we don't know. I mean, all sorts, I think it sounds weird, doesn't it, that you're basing this on what, the start of the day, almost like the debate doesn't matter, because that's what you're saying, isn't it? If you got this impression it was going to go through at the start of the day before the debate.
Yeah.
It's almost like saying the debate is really just, but it is in a way, and nor should the debate in Parliament really be what decides it, because MPs will have been having those discussions with lots of people, hopefully some experts and stakeholders. That's the thing for me. If you're as an MP, you should be on, when you're voting on anything, obviously you've got to follow the whip, but this isn't a whip thing. You should be seeking out experts and stakeholders. You should be talking to. So they'll have been doing all that. So the idea of some MP after all this time who will have come along and not known what they were going to do and decide to listen to the debate and be swayed by that, I would actually think a bit weird. So the debates really in Parliament are just about recording people's views,
yes,
rather than actual debate.
Yeah, and giving the chance to grandstand now and again to say, "Hey, I'm a little backbench MP. Have you ever thought of making me a junior minister?"
I think so. I think most have seemed to have been. I've not watched it today, but I think most have behaved themselves.
Yes.
In this particular debate.
I think that comment by Tuggenhat about calling it assisted killing, I think that was way out of order.
Well, it was linguistically wrong.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
it
feels
that's
like
what gets me. It's linguistically incorrect.
It's your school teacher coming back out, isn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't an English school teacher, but
not
still,
getting a gold star and a jelly baby. So no, it's continuing. I'm guessing this is going to go on till 3:00 then, if it's not finished by now.
It might do. It's unusual to see so many MPs in on a Friday afternoon, but then it is very much a backbench bill, really.
They did mention that
out of it.
Normally Fridays are reserved for MPs to hang out in their constituencies, if they're not Nigel Farage, obviously, because he doesn't go.
Friday afternoon used to be the time when Andrew Bridgen stood up and talked shit to like an empty chamber. Yeah. And the poor deputy speaker who had to preside over it. Yeah.
Went to the dentist yesterday expecting a denture filling and fitting and one filling. No denture fitting and 2 fillings instead, without the numbing juice. Ow, that sounds painful. Sorry to hear that, Chris C. That really sucks. Even when I spelt it, I think of steaks. Lol, says Joanna, which is kind of random. I love it. Scott says, "Ooh, that sounds nice, Ian, especially if it's on the dry side." I have no idea what you're talking about, but that's great. Anne says, "I tried to save the very rude thing for serious situations. Missing a stream I can watch later. Doesn't come under that description." And the Unquiet Badger saying, "Graham has gone all Blackadder, wibble, wibble. Pencils in nostrils." The river, ribble. Jesus. The wibble. And Martin Harrow is saying, "I'm from the Wirral." I'm so sorry, Martin. Are you from the nice bit? Are you from like West Kirby, or are you from the grotty bit like Birkenhead? I'm going to get into loads of trouble now for calling Birkenhead the grotty bit of the Wirral, but never mind.
Everyone's got a grotty bit.
Our friend of the channel, Cozy, she's from the Wirral. Well, she's originally from Germany, but she lives in the Wirral. She lives in New Brighton. Although the Wirral is home to one of my favourite places in the country, which is Port Sunlight. It's like this little village that was made by Lord Leverhulme out of the money he made from soap and slaves. Oh. Good old soap and slaves, eh?
Wow. The soap bit's all right. My wife makes soap now.
Really? What's she make it out of?
Resin.
What's she make it out of?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a soaper. They call themselves soapers, by the way. She doesn't have... she's part of communities. I encouraged her to have a hobby for a few years. But as a single mum, so she didn't really have one for ages. So I encouraged her to get a hobby to avoid the empty nest syndrome. And now she's right into soap and crafts.
Ah, okay, fair enough. So Jess Atto, she's a Labour MP. She said that the advances, if the bill advances today, there will be unintended and undesirable consequences. I mean, this is the thing. Like, I honestly believe, and I know you've mentioned already that
Did they say what they were?
I don't know.
Because if they don't say what they were,
Yeah.
like, it's all right. Anything can have an unintended consequence.
Yeah. But yeah, the Sarah Green has spoken, the Liberal Democrat MP. She said she voted for the bill at second reading because a constituent told her the current system is cruel, and she faced the uncertainty of a police investigation for taking her husband to Dignitas. Again, just yeah. And Paula Barker said the status quo is failing people each and every day. She's the MP for Liverpool Wavertree. I went to school in Wavertree. You need strong wrists to Wavertree.
What, to live in Wavertree?
To Wavertree.
Oh, Wavertree. Oh, I see. Okay.
See what I did there?
Okay.
Thanks. Barker says she's pleased the bill has brought about a long overdue discussion on palliative care. And they were talking earlier in Parliament about how palliative care is awful in this country, and it's not. It's a mixed bag. It's a curate's egg. It's good in parts. Like my sister had amazing palliative care in Wrexham, but I know of other people. Well,
I also think it's perfectly reasonable with something like that to compare the worst, because I would say the standard of national palliative care is based on the worst care, because you can have some good practice in anything, but the state of palliative care is the state of its worst example. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, there was a time, if you recall, Wes Streeting was really pushing that line, and he had to get told to shut up by Starmer because he was just going on too much.
Wes Streeting's a dickhead. I really don't like him. The more I've learnt about him, the more I hate him.
Well, the thing for me where he really popped up into my radar was the 2019 general election. And he was, he'd won his seat, but he was absolutely going on and on against Jeremy Corbyn. And it was like, he's still the leader, mate. And, I'm not a fan of Corbyn, but it's like, I'm not a fan of any MP that just attacks their own party. I don't care who the leader is or anything like that. It's a Labour MP's job to keep Labour in power, or to get Labour in power and then keep them in power.
Yeah.
To keep your views to yourself. And I don't care what the issue is. If you don't want to be a Labour MP, stand as an independent. And I said this of Corbyn, and I would say it of Streeting in the future if he has a leadership tilt. If you attack your own party publicly, you can argue behind closed doors and stuff like that, and there's nothing wrong with hinting some disagreement either. But if you're just attacking your own party just because you don't think it's making the right decision, and you may be right, but if you're just attacking it, you don't have the moral authority to lead. Yeah. Because if Wes Streeting were the Labour leader and someone was to launch into a tirade against him, the likes of which he did Corbyn, he would not like that behaviour. Yeah. So it's like, well, be consistent. Yeah. So that's where I first came in. And when he was made health secretary, I did think to myself that, because he is good. Like, he's really good in debates. He's on top of his brief. He's quite clever. But when he was made shadow health secretary, I just thought, could it just have not been? I wouldn't have even minded him being education secretary. Yeah. Because at the time, he and Phillipson were both promoted to the shadow cabinet as potential future leaders. I don't think Phillipson's really making a name for herself. Streeting has. I wish he could have just gone somewhere else. There's most other departments he probably would have been fine in. Yeah. It'd still be a little bit objectionable, but he'd be fine. But health, it's not been a good one.
Big shout out to David Faulkner for the 15 Hong Kong dollars. I used to be addicted to soap. I'm clean now. Someone get the squeaky tank out. We need the squeaky tank animation. I should have like a little animation that goes under the bottom of the screen with the sound effect of the squeaky tank. I'll work on that. Someone saying that this is Anne. Wes Streeting looks like a mafia boss's right-hand man, the one who does the paperwork. And Unquiet Badger is saying Streeting is a political quisling. And Hayton Pud says, what's a quisling? A quisling is a politician who works for the other side.
I don't think he is. I mean, at the end of the day, what he said, if he were just saying it in private, would be all right. Because at the end of the day, Corbyn did do a lot of damage. But it's like you're a Labour MP. You've got.
Was that before the election or was that after the election?
No, it was after the election. So they'd lost, and they'd lost heavily.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's
because I had a few choice
didn't have to
words
say anything. But we can. We're not MPs. But if you're an MP, accept the responsibility. I just hate MPs who want to get elected under the party banner but do not accept the responsibility of that party. But it's two-way process.
I don't like him because I agree with him being a quisling. I think when people talk about red tie Tories, I kind of roll my eyes most of the time. But with him, I could see him crossing the floor, mate. I really could.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think his heart's in the right place for a Labour
I don't think
MP.
it is. I do. I don't think it is for the health department.
I think he'll quite happily sell it all for.
I don't know. I actually don't think that badly of him.
Yeah.
I just don't think he was a good fit for. Now I will point out, by the way, because I mean, people may be imagining I'm talking about his policies on trans people. That may have happened anyway. We don't actually know that's got anything to do with Streeting.
Yeah.
Because he was actually fine. You wouldn't have known. Like, people call him transphobic now. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I don't know him. But you wouldn't have said that in 2 years ago. So he changed as Labour changed. When Labour, after that failure of the gender recognition bill in Scotland. So for all I know, any health secretary would have had to have that might be a policy, is what I'm saying, that came from on high. It may not.
He seems to revel in it. I mean, stopping puberty blockers is a bit sadistic as far as I'm concerned. But people are talking about him in the chat.
It's unscientific.
Martin says, I live down the road from Wavertree in Moseley Hill. Where's Moseley Hill? It's Mossley Hill. You missed an S. Hope these local MPs are behaving themselves. They've been all right so far, I think. I don't know what the one over the water. I don't know what you were saying. I thought a quisling was a young person competitor on Junior Mastermind. That could also be a quisling. Or maybe
Quizlet.
Reeves isn't a politician. I think this is a problem in Labour in general. That may cause further problems for them.
I thought Reeves and Starmer are both they're just scared of saying the wrong thing. That's the problem. I've actually met Reeves. She's actually quite personable. This is what you see on the television is
People
not
say
her.
this about Starmer as well.
They do say about Starmer. I can't attest to that, because although I've been in the same room as him, I've not really met him. And that can happen. It's just like a stage fright effect, isn't it? It's just that fear, and it might well be that if they could, if someone just lace their coffees with vodka or something, they might be brilliant. We just need to get them drunk on the slide, and they might be fine. Might be absolutely fine.
I think that's against the law. I think that's spiking.
It is against the law, and it would be particularly bad to do it to the Prime Minister, who has the authorization to authorize nuclear strikes. Not a good idea to be drunk, as yes, Prime Minister pointed out. But nonetheless, they just, they need. It's not how they naturally are. Some people are naturally awkward. They're not naturally awkward. Well, I'm sure Starmer isn't. I know Reeves isn't.
Yeah.
But they just get rabbit caught in headlights syndrome when they're with the cameras, because they're just shit scared of saying the wrong thing. Because it will be pounced upon by the media, absolutely. Yeah. But just trust yourself not to say something wrong all the time. You can get away with a few anyway. I mean, look at pissing Trump. And Boris
Johnson. Gets away with everything. Yeah, but the standard is a lot lower on the right. In fact, there is no standard on the right. You can pretty much say anything, and they go, "Oh, they're joking." Oh. One Angry Pagan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Might be the last one of the show. Ed Miliband doing a good job as he can, given the mess left behind by the Tories. 4 out of 5 stars so far. There you go.
Yeah,
Jelly Baby.
As I say, the ones that I've been happy with, I'm happy with Ed Miliband, Angela Rayner, your mate Jonathan Reynolds. I'm happy with him.
And we've got Tommy Lee saying, I do have some level of sympathy for Streeting. It must be hard being the son of a gangster who's also Christian and also battling with coming to terms with your sexuality. And on that note, Kirsty says, what is it with gay transphobes? I've met gay I've met gay people who are incredibly misogynistic.
Yeah,
I've met gay people who are Tories who vote for refuck. I mean, it seems to me that they're shooting themselves in the foot, but
yeah, people have priorities, don't they? They think to themselves, well, I don't like their view on that, but this is a higher priority for me. People do that all the time.
Yeah. But you'll think like being able to live your life the way you want to live it would be quite a high priority for most people.
It's not for everyone. If people think that, that party, although it will restrict certain rights, if they just think they could manage it in their own lives and they get some other benefit out of it on top.
Yeah.
It's the same reason why a lot of people voted for Trump.
Yeah.
They didn't agree with him on all sorts of things, but they thought they'd get cheaper eggs, right?
Yeah. So what we're going to do in a couple of weeks' time, what day does the 4th like? It should be Friday the 4th. Yeah, Friday the 4th of July. We're gonna do a special, if you're up for this, Phil, a special longer edition of the agenda. We're gonna be giving Labour a scorecard on different things that they've done over the first year.
That should be easy because I've already been planning on doing my own version anyway, so I shall already have my notes.
Cool, excellent. I like it, man. I like it when someone turns up to these things prepared. So, I think we'll wrap it up there. I'm sure everyone's got things to do in this unbearable heat that I'm told is in the south somewhere, not here in Durham. Here's a top tip. Don't move into an old Victorian house that used to be a shop. Because in the Victorian days, they didn't have refrigerators. So if they built something as a shop, as a village shop, they would make it very, very cold. Insanely cold. Even on a hot day like today.
Useful.
It is useful on the 2 hot days a year that we get. the rest of the year,
more than that. We're having an actual heat wave this weekend.
We are having a heat wave. We are.
Have
So
to check on people who may be vulnerable.
yes. So stay hydrated. Loads of water. Don't let your piss go really, really dark. You want nice light coloured piss. That's just a rule, from me.
Yes.
Traveling in deserts and things. So yeah, lots of water. I'm gonna take a sip of water while I sit. And also, stay cool, stay in the shade. The sun isn't your friend. I guarantee it, right? It's a big radioactive furnace in the sky, which is firing radiation at you all the time. It's shooting little tiny bullets of cancer at you. Okay, get out the sun, get a big hat, slap on the sun cream. Please don't die ever. Thanks for the company and take care of yourselves and see you later, says Scott. I'll see you, Scott. Thank you. Thank you very much to my co-host, Phil Morehouse. If you'd like to follow Phil on his channel, which I'm sure you all do, but if there's anyone out there who doesn't watch Phil's daily shows that he does, you go over to A Different Bias. It's in the title of this show. You should be able to just click on that link and it'll take you to it, or tap on it if you're on a phone. I'll be back at 9:30 tonight with the Friday Night Social. And until then, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Give us a like on the way out. And until next time, hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.